Hello there, I'm Tim and he's John, and this is How to Murder Time, a podcast about games and things.
Hello everybody.
Watcher.
It's another podcast.
It is.
More games have been played.
What we're playing. Yeah, I like these, because it reminds me when I listen back what happened like 2 weeks ago, because I have memories and things. It's always interesting. Try and remember what happened, because often I'm just panicking during these events. I often give the impression of a cool, controlled, collected member of an elite gaming team, but yes, it's all just a facade, you see.
No, I listened to a certain MMO podcast the other day. I know the truth.
Yeah. So, I'm going to kick off by talking about DDO, Dungeons and Dragons Online Unlimited, or whatever they're calling it these days.
Yeah.
I've got a static group there. I've been invited to join one anyway. Yeah, we got a little gang going on the Sunday there. This is like a regular, mostly every week static group thing, and it's going. We broke our duck. We broke the streak. It's a matter of enormous personal shame to me. We'd started off doing them on, right, because there's Wish and there's Asgar, who are regular members of the team there, and Torag joins us as well. And from character creation, we'd basically been blasting through doing all of the dungeons in DDO on Elite. So you got various difficulty settings. You click on the little doorway to go into the instanced dungeon adventure. Your little modules there, and there's solo mode, which I think came much later than after launch, which allows people who don't have a regular static group to actually get something done. Then you got normal, which is normal. Because that's what normal is. Then you got hard, and then there's elite. I think there's another one called epic as well, but you can't even use that one until your character's level 28 or something. Basically, you go to max level, and then in a genius of content reuse, they've decided to add an insanely hard difficulty option for most of the dungeons, all the way from the start again. So basically, when you get to the end, you go back to the start and you carry on.
Sounds like a cheap option.
It's an MMO option. You see that quite a bit. Reuse old content, and it makes sense. I mean, particularly if you're paying for adventure packs in DDO, which can be like 700 or 800 turbine points, which is like $7 or $8. I think it's roughly 1 turbine point to 1 cent or whatever. So I could spend like $8, buy an adventure, blast through it in under 20 minutes in some cases, and then never see it again, which seems just shockingly wasteful to me. So it's nice that there's an option to come back and try it on really, really, really hard mode after you've like done all the levels and stuff. Anyway, we're not there yet, but we were doing Elite, and of course every time you do Elite, you successfully complete an Elite dungeon, you add 1 to your bravery bonus streak thing, and I think we had a bravery bonus streak. Well, mine said about 53, I think, which means 53 completed adventures in Elite mode without changing the difficulty level, and then doing 1 to break the streak. Basically, it's all Elite all the way, and I think our actual streak's much higher than that, because I switched characters halfway through because I just really wasn't liking how the warrior works. Tanking in that game is not like tanking in any normal MMO. It's mostly just about basically the way you taunt and tank in DDO is to just be doing much more damage than everyone else. So and it's something I've never really quite understood. There's a lot of theory craft in that game that I'd never really understood. I've never really quite known what I'm doing about building builds and actually playing the game and stuff. So I'm mostly a supporting cast member in that particular team. But halfway through that streak, switched to a cleric. The follow chasing along behind him being a heal bot is actually a lot easier conceptually for me, so I've managed to keep that going fairly well. I've spec'd massively into Radiant Servant or something. Basically, you've got your now familiar 3 different spec trees to build as you go through, and I picked the one that's all about healing lots. And the pinnacle of that is the two particular abilities that's finally clicked as we were playing through the last couple of weeks, what I'm supposed to be doing with that. There's one at the top capstone ability called Positive Energy Aura or something, and basically it lasts about 3 or 4 minutes, and it just does is a really powerful AoE heal over time that moves with you and runs constantly while it's active. Then you couple that with a couple of perks you pick in the tree, so the cleric has the ability to turn undead, and in DDO that's you can do that so many times per day, but in DDO that's represented by so many goes between rest shrines, because they don't really have the concept of sleeping for 8 hours and then venturing for 1 hour and then going away and sleeping for another 8 hours.
That was always a dumb thing.
That would be quite a slow gameplay session, to be honest. So you have rest shrines, you just right click, you sit down, and a little progress bar goes up, takes about a minute and then or 30 seconds, and then all your daily stuff comes back again. So if you spec the cleric right, you have a certain number of abilities to turn undead every day, which I never use because running on elite, everything has a resistances and difficulty ratings of much higher than I can reliably land things that allow saving throws on. Basically anything that you do to a monster that they can then do a saving throw against will fail pretty much all the time in elite mode, because the monsters are just levels higher above you. It's a fantastic textbook examination of how to construct a bad adventure for pen and paper, you know. How to really screw with your party. Well, just keep throwing monsters that are like 3 or 4 or 8 challenged ratings higher than the party, and we'll see how they get on. That would be a recipe for disaster in most games of pen and paper, but in DDO, the computer game nature of it all means that that's basically an appropriate kind of challenge for highly trained metagamers. So it's an absolute mistake as a cleric, certainly as a healing cleric. I mean, perhaps there are perks you can take to offset the difficulty rating and the saves and stuff. But basically, I can't really reliably do any kind of offensive attacks or spells on any of the monsters because it all just resists saves, bounces off, whatever.
So your character's useless?
No, my character's very useful. Just don't try and attack the enemy ever. I follow along behind, healing and buffing. I got an enormous repertoire of buffs that I have to cast on the entire party before we go in there, and that's basically what's allowing us to survive in elite mode, and then I run along healing afterwards, whereas the rest of the team who have spec'd more into offensive stuff have more of a chance of actually walloping stuff in the face and killing it. So you got turning charges, which I don't turn undead. No one turns undead. That's a waste of time. These charges are also used to power other special perk abilities, and that one of them is this positive energy aura. Every time I want to use it, I use up a turn undead charge, and it runs for about 3 or 4 minutes and does massive AoE healing around me in quite an unpleasingly aesthetically nasty-looking yellow-green cloud of fog that surrounds me, which you may see on the video there. And it just heals. So as long as I make sure I stand near the people who are doing the fighting and being wailed on, they're getting a continual AoE heal. And we got 2 clerics in the team, one and Askar's the other one, and he can do the same thing. So these 2 fog clouds overlap. That mean that the entire team's getting a massive amount of constant heal over time. Then I realised that there's a thing in the perk tree that allows me to regenerate turn undead charges over time, and the rate they come back is faster than the rate I'm using them to maintain the aura, which basically means as long as I'm paying attention, I can maintain the healing over time aura continually forever. And that's just really, that's clicked, and that's made me very useful indeed. That's taken such an edge off the healing, and the healing in that game is a real nightmare as well, because the monsters tend to do insane spike damage, and, we're talking reaction time problems with the healing there, rather than cooldown time problems. So I'm desperately trying to follow along, keep everyone alive, and it more or less works, and so far we've got about 53, 90 odd adventures in, if you include both characters when I switched over. Anyway, we came across one this week, which I think you might be seeing some video of, that was just so insanely difficult that we had to give up, had to come out, switch it down to hard mode, and go in and try again, breaking our streak, which we thought might happen eventually, but yeah, disappointing. End of an era. We tried, we got quite far, level 16, 18, I don't even know what level my character is in there. If you're watching the video, there might be a number under the portrait that could tell you. I think it's 16, it might be 18, I'd lose track. I think it might be 18. Anyway, let's go with 18, because otherwise I'm going to bog down in this quite badly.
Yeah.
Yes.
If only there's some way we can find out.
I'm busy. We're doing this live, kind of. Anyway. Yeah, so we got quite far. I mean, the max level is 28. We just about gotten to 20, which was like always regarded in D&D as finishing your character. Basically, between sort of 15 to 20, your character starts to think about retirement. This is when you pick up your castle and your army, and your character retires into some kind of mid-level, upper-end NPC obscurity, and you roll a new character and play the game as designed. But in DDO, no, you just keep on going. It's becoming more and more of an MMO and much, much less of any kind of reflection of the pen and paper game as every patch goes in, I think. Still playing it. We found the Forgotten Realms as well. There was a big thing with a spider woman boss thing, demon web portal thing, and then there was this big weird sort of place that they're called the Demon Web, which is like a big load of floating rocks in a void. Looked very good, very impressive. I like that dungeon. It was quite hard work, lots of spiders. And there's some sort of plot thing involving cloth. Is it cloth? Cloth?
Yeah.
It's double L-O-T-H, and double L is in Welsh, isn't it?
Let's run.
Hlolth, yes, the demon web spider mistress goddess of the Forgotten Realms, is doing some blah 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 plot 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 and portal to Eberron. That's the basic cheesy excuse as to why they gave up on doing any kind of Eberron content and decided to quickly, desperately reboot it all as a Forgotten Realms experience once you get to about level 20. We got the introductory mission to get through there, came through a big load of caverns, big load of hyperspatial demon spider web thing, came out the other side into a cave, out the cave, and my god, we all came out and all on Mumblewood just went, whoa, it's Bree. We saw. We came to a place in the realm of Cormier, which is part of the Forgotten Realms. I'm bluffing extensively now.
I'm trying to remember.
There's a village.
I use electricity to forget all this.
A village called Evening Star, seriously, you come out of this cave and there's a river, there's some trees, there's some green hills, and there's some houses and stuff, and it's an absolute spitting image of Bree from Lord of the Rings Online. And it's funny that it's so generic.
Pick
green hill
building,
country,
drag it across, drop it down.
Quite cut and paste. I mean, the building style's a little bit different, but my God, you're expecting the prancing pony to be at the top of the hill as you go running into this place. We've not done any adventuring in there. We've met Elminster, the author insertion fantasy persona of Ed Greenwood, who invented all of the Forgotten Realms stuff back in the 1920s, I think. And he's got some.
That would make it predate Tolkien.
he needs some help with some monsters or something. I don't know.
Powerful being in the world.
I wasn't really paying much attention. Yeah. So trouble is, most of the content that actually starts in the Forgotten Realms is a couple of levels higher. So I'm not quite sure why you get to go there early. I don't know. Something plot something. Anyway, so we have access to the Forgotten Realms finally. You know, I mean, so you got DDO, and they got their big worry is that everyone's not really getting Eberron, which was a kind of wacky pulp noir style cyber magitech, floating crystals everywhere and golems in PI detective hats type setting that they decided to tack onto 4th edition 3.5 as their new core campaign world, and no one really liked it that much, and they were all going, oh, where's the Forgotten Realms gone? Oh, I'm not playing Forgotten Realms, because Forgotten Realms it typifies the very essence of vanilla D&D, and that's what it's for. It's a very good. It serves its purpose, which is as a boring vanilla base setting, which you can learn D&D.
There was a boring vanilla base setting that was even more boring and vanilla.
Yeah, there was one for normal D&D before advanced D&D way back, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was that's how boring. That's how boring and vanilla that was. I don't even remember what that one was called. But the Forgotten Realms has endured, Baldur's Gate, etc., Neverwinter. It's basically been the dependable, uninteresting bedrock upon which you build your own stories and adventures, and it works well.
There were so many more interesting ones like Ravenloft, Dark Sun,
Planescape.
Oh,
yeah. There was so
many.
They
should make a Planescape game.
That'd be great. Yeah, well, that was the problem with that is that if you have a wacky, interesting setting, it steals the thunder away from the GM and anything they might make, which I think was part of the problem with Eberron. Eberron itself is intrinsically interesting, but it doesn't leave you a lot of room to make your own stuff, I think, which is why you want a boring, dependable bedrock setting like Forgotten Realms. Anyway, long story short, they caved and decided to start retrofitting DDO with a load of Forgotten Realms stuff. Problem is, they didn't do it at level 1. So if you were put off by Eberron and thought, oh, I might like to try DDO, but if only there were some Forgotten Realms I could go and play in, then you're crap out of luck, really, because you've got to grind out at least 20 levels of Eberron before you're allowed to even step foot in the place that's got the content you might actually enjoy. So it's just such a weird, paradoxical thing. Maybe they're just assuming everyone's got level 20 characters. I don't even know if they sell level 20 characters in their cash shop. It's entirely possible. I'd have to have a look. But you've got to put a lot. And it is work. I mean, we've only just got there after doing this for about, I don't know, 8 months, maybe a year, 6 months. I don't know how long exactly. A significant number of months to get where we are, and we're doing it all on elite mode. One of the main reasons for doing it on elite mode is you get huge amounts of XP for doing it on elite mode, which basically means that it's very rare that we'd ever have to do the same adventure twice. Now, if you're doing it on normal mode, or God forbid, even trying to solo through this thing, then you are going to be doing the same dungeons over and over and over to grind out minuscule amounts of XP, and it could be like years before you ever saw any Forgotten Realms. So we're there now. I haven't actually done any adventuring there, but that's coming up, so I'll be able to get some more specific reports about the place. Yes, the one that broke our hard streak was another bullshit Beholder dungeon. They got this. There's a place called Zoriat, which is the realm of madness, and every so often they throw in a Zoriat madness mission type thing. Yeah, there'll be an adventure that's based around the plane of madness breaking through, and that's when they get to the designers really get to enjoy their wacky side and start putting in puzzles, putting in sections where the clicky tile puzzle comes to life and starts attacking you, and you have to build an airship out of furniture to get to the madness thing to catch the magical chest that ate the MacGuffin you were after. Mimics ahoy, yeah. And almost always with these madness dungeons you get the Beholder, which is not a real monster. I am a card-carrying member of the International Secret Guild of Game Masters, and I know for a fact, one of the induction course meetings, seminars that we went on, they explained what the Beholder really is, and the Beholder is basically a monster you drop into the game if your wizard's getting a bit out of hand. The Beholder comes with anti-magic as standard. It basically just shuts down magic, and then it can start death beaming, insta-killing anyone it doesn't like after that. So you use a Beholder if your party's having a bit too much fun and running rings around your carefully constructed, challenging narrative content. I've personally not had to resort to using Beholder in any of the ventures I run yet, but
that's because you're weak.
It's always in the toolbox.
Day one, Beholder.
It's always in the toolbox if I need it, and we would.
Is that a threat?
Well, no, not at all. No, I'm just stating a fact. I don't make threats. I make promises or something. Anyway, yeah, I mean, we had a lot of post-mortem about the Beholders and trying to work out what the hell are you supposed to do about this thing, because in elite mode you are so desperately dependent on vast number of buffs, and the Beholder can just turn them all off, and you're screwed at that point, because then all of its other attacks tend to insta-kill or one-hit kill, or at least take half your health in one go, or, really lock you down. So we thought that perhaps the strategy for Beholder, I suppose, is weak against non-magical ranged attack.
Big, heavy, sharp thing.
Yeah, you have a bloke at the back with a really powerful bow or something, and maybe the rest of the party can take so long to die that he gets to
aim for the eye.
Aim for the eye. Yeah. I think you just need a bloke at the back with a crossbow who tries to fire
and
that down
grit.
the exhaust port.
Just throw grit.
Yeah. This particular adventure has had us eaten by the Beholder, and there was a fantastic sequence where we were inside the Beholder in like a sort of the Gears of War level where you're inside the worm trying to saw your way out. It was a bit like that. So I think they intended it as a kind of breather dungeon. You have all these serious dungeons where you're fighting terrible menaces against overwhelming odds, and every so often it's nice to have a comedy dungeon thrown in, but these things are so insanely overspec'd and difficult because of Beholders and other effects that go on in there as well, that they end up becoming the most challenging content instead of the comedy dungeon we throw in as a bit of light relief every now and then, So I can't work out whose fault that whole experience is, so I'm going to blame everyone here. I think we all lost out there. I lost out, our team lost out, Turbine lost out. I'm just disappointed with everyone.
Turbine can't afford to lose out much more.
Well, I think we're still carrying on playing, mostly because it's hard work. In a way I'm quite glad. I didn't want to be the one that suggested we drop to hard mode first, It was that kind of weird Mexican standoff in the team. No one wanted to be the one to admit defeat first, but I'm kind of glad we're now not doing it on elite mode, because it means the game might become enjoyable again a bit, which will be good. I quite like that idea. I still want to see some proper Forgotten Realms dungeoning and stuff as well. See what that's all like, if it's worth all the fuss all along. No. Well, we'll see.
My prediction.
But anyway, so that's DDO. We're still going, but it's been a sort of gritted teeth journey much of the way, I think, which now promises to perhaps become a bit more relaxed and casual, I'm hoping, which will be good. And we did well, though. We got to like 18 without breaking the elite streak, so not bad. I didn't think we were going to get all the way to the top, to be honest, but there you go. So that's DDO. Why don't you talk about a thing?
I'm going to talk about The Swindle.
The Swindle, okay.
This is a game about making money. It's set in a steampunk Victorian type environment.
I like it. I like it already.
It's a side-on platformy type game.
I'm starting to dislike it.
2D, and you've got 100 days before the police or the government implement this thing, which will give them total control of information, and they'll know everything, and you won't be able to do any more crimes.
Oh,
so you've got to steal this thing in 100 days. Each day is a different attempt to break into a house.
Okay.
And so you basically start off, you're not very good, you get your randomly generated thief, your burglar, and you go inside and you steal some money off the floor and various things. You take out robotic policemen who are very stupid, and then you go away again. Right. And after a couple of days, you can start affording some upgrades. So you get the upgrades to maybe jump further, or to double jump, or to be able to hack a computer.
Okay.
And hacking computers is good because you hack a computer and you transfer all the money out of the computer. And so then you're earning more money, and you go on and on and on. And it was at a certain point you think, right, I'm going to pay this money now and move on to this next area, which enables you to earn more money, but you have to pay money to get there.
Okay.
And then you do that a couple of times till you get the end, and you do this massive crime within 100 days. Some people have done it in 13.
Never underestimate the ability of the internet to totally break your expectations of content consumption. Yeah,
Which has led the
I'm thinking of the 7-minute Morrowind. Yeah,
which has led the maker of the game to say, "Yeah, could you do some footage of that, please? I'd really like to see it."
I don't believe you. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think if I'd written a game and it was expected to be done in 100 days and someone did it in 13, I'd want to know why and how and what should I
maximum.
patch.
If you get to 100, you fail. So it's expected to come in under 100.
Okay, yeah.
It's just, I don't think anyone's expecting it to get all the way down to 13 so quickly.
I'm not surprised. I imagine there'll be a 2-day one at some point.
No, you can never do 2. 13 is probably around.
Is there a functional minimum then?
Yeah, the amount of money you can steal per.
Okay.
Because at the start, you can't afford any of the upgrades.
So
So
it
you
sounds
can
like
only get the
someone's
money
won
lying
that
around.
challenge then, as it were.
Quite possibly. He may get down to 12. No, he made a couple of mistakes on his run.
Oh, okay.
Basically, it's a game about risk and reward.
Yes. Okay.
So how much do you push it? If you get caught, if you get seen,
Yeah.
then the police are called and you have to get out really quickly to your escape pod, which goes back up to your airship.
Airships?
Yep.
Tick.
So even if you're seen, you can still get out if you're lucky.
Okay.
But it's a question of how far you're going to push it. You've got quite a big haul, but there's a bit over there. You're going to try and get that as well.
Mm-hmm. Sounds cool.
And it's every time you fail, it's because of your own greed, and it's quite good in that way.
So there's good balance, good pacing to it.
Yeah, there is really. And the more jobs the same burglar does, the higher bonus they get for doing it. So they make more and more money. So when you lose...
Burglars is your lives, is it, effectively?
You've got an infinite number of lives. It's just that if you do well and you get a streak of doing well, you get better as you go along.
Cool.
So you make more money. So basically, when you've got somebody who survived 10 days, they're really good, and when they get caught, it is really bad because all of a sudden your money making goes right down because you've lost that bonus, which is really fantastic and great. And I really like it. It's fun. It's not something that's going to have an awful lot of life, but for a small indie game, it's very, very satisfying and very fun and quite well balanced. And yes, it is, in theory, possible to do it really, really well, but you're never going to, because you're always going to be just a bit too greedy, just a bit too careless, get seen, get caught.
So, was it, we're talking simple to learn, difficult to master type of thing? There's always the capacity to do it slightly better again and again.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds good. If you got the sort of the
But
potential, if you like the basic gameplay, that is,
but
then,
the thing is, it's not really based on reaction time, so it's not a Twitch type thing.
Right.
It's based on your perception and your understanding of the situations more. So it's good, even if you're not very good at the old Twitch-based jumping around platforming.
Yeah, jumpy puzzles are a very much love or hate thing, and many people just don't get on with them at all. But
yeah, another thing that a lot of people don't like is, you start a level, there's X amount of money to get on the level, and when you finish the level, it gives you a percentage of how much money you got. And Mission 1, you are going to get a tiny percentage of that because you can't get the computers, you can't get in. There are some rooms, it's all procedurally generated. So there's some rooms you can't get into because they're completely blocked off.
Initially, they will be literally uncompletable because you haven't got the special powers and upgrades.
So you don't have the bomb to be able to blow up the wall to get in there.
So you're never going to be able to clean sweep the entire game because of the way it
generates. But it doesn't matter. You're not meant to clean sweep the entire game. You're meant to get just enough money.
I can see why people would get annoyed at that, though. Yeah.
So it's really not. If you really have to be a completionist and you don't like coming out of a level saying, "Oh, I only got 10% of the stuff," you're going to get very angry at this game.
You should judge it on whole game percentages, rather.
Because always going for 100% on a level is what will get you killed anyway.
Yeah. And that sounds like a designed aspect of it, the risk versus reward. Yeah,
yeah, and it's a very fascinating balance in a very interesting way that really makes it a fun game.
But going at it with this typical achievement-oriented type mindset, likely to frustrate, I suppose.
It's going to get you caught again and again and again.
I guess you learn that as you go. Yeah. But yeah, if people are unwilling to learn that lesson, they'll probably bounce off it and not like the game at all in general.
Definitely.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, it's very good. Came out recently. It's on Steam, and it's on the consoles as well, I believe.
So it's the Swindle.
Yeah, the Swindle's quite fun.
Cool. I'm going to talk about Rift. Still going there. I won. I won an MMO again. I have a max level character in Rift.
Huzzah, you can hang up your Rift.
Hooray. Well, no, of course not. So, yeah, I've managed to get my warrior all the way up. This is the one I picked up again that I'd sort of put down from the previous static group stuff, the one that I'm static grouping on the Friday with now. We're still doing that. That's all going well. We've introduced this new concept called Guild Permadeath, you see. Decided that permadeath is for lightweights. Permadeath, of course, being an MMO concept where you create your character and then you play like normal, and the first time your character dies, you stop playing that character, possibly delete it, whatever, game over. Permadeath. So
it's really bad for grouping, that.
Yes, well, obviously it leads you to take less risks if you're taking it seriously. You play the easy game, you just nibble away at low-end green difficulty mobs, that sort of thing, and just play it all very casual and safe, and it takes quite a long time. But it's an interesting challenge and certainly adds a frisson of danger and thrill to the more risky challenges, particularly pickup grouping and so on. But we've decided that that's not difficult enough for us, because we've been right. So the basic sort of thing we do on the Fridays mostly when we're there is we do the dungeons, obviously the 5-man content. There's a whole big list of those that we can access as our team gets higher level and so on. We're working our way up, and what we've been finding is that all of the finger quotes normal dungeons are a bit easy, and we've not really had any problem with any of them except the occasional gimmick mechanic we didn't understand and charged into badly. So what we decided, so when you get to 50, all the normal dungeons and then become available in expert mode, which is basically the whole thing retooled for level 50. But what I've noticed is that the expert goes at these same dungeons often feature 2 or 3 more bosses and extra rooms, and I thought, why would they add those in afterwards? And then I remembered seeing some of these rooms on the edge of the map covered in darkness on the normal modes. And what I think they've done is that these finger quotes expert dungeons are actually the original dungeons as designed, intended from the word go. And what at some point in the past they basically put in easier cut down versions of these and called them the normal dungeons, so that people leveling up get the chance to pick up group and try the dungeons and learn basic dungeon gameplay and so on without them being quite so challenging. Anyway, we're level 50, we've got decent gear, we've got various 50s to 65s, and we're trying these expert mode dungeons and still not finding them terribly brick wall like, so we've decided to implement a system called Guild Permadeath, which is basically if we wipe in one of these expert mode dungeons we disband the guild.
That's an interesting concept.
I know, it certainly adds a frisson. There's a thrill of danger, but so far we've really not been that challenged by any of the expert dungeons either. I don't know if there's super nightmare mode versions of them or whatever.
Or a comedy refresher dungeon they put in just for fun.
It could be, yeah. Oh, yeah. I haven't found the local equivalent of the Beholder dungeon yet, but it's only a matter of time, I'm sure. So, yeah, we're doing well, actually, at the dungeon thing. I mean, the biggest difficulty we have is trying to get the ready check done at the start. You have to sort of... If you form a 5-man team, you can still join that team to the looking for group dungeon tool. All it'll do is just fast track your entire team through and pick a random dungeon for you. But you still get the bonus tokens and bonus XP and loot and stuff you get for joining the LFG tool in the first place. Basically, if you choose the dungeon you want to do, you just go and do that dungeon. But if you join a queue with the outlook of I don't mind what I do and I'll help any team that needs a slot filling, you get bonus gear just as an incentive to populate the looking for group tool, I suppose. I don't think Rift's quite got to the point where the tank gets an extra bonus loot bag as well, as is the case in World of Warcraft, but tanks often are the problem in waiting for these dungeon things to fill. Not our problem, we got full teams usually. So, yeah. So, yeah, there pops up a whole set of windows, one of them where you have to pick what role you're going to be, and then the next one, you have to click a button to say that I am ready, and you'd be surprised how often our elite crack team of dungeon clearance operatives bollocks that stage up.
I'm not surprised at all.
It sometimes takes us 2 or 3 goes to get started. Once we're in, we know what we're doing and we get on with it, and it's going well. So yeah, there's a certain amount of gated content in that there are minimum level requirements for a lot of these dungeons, and some of our team take longer to get these levels sorted out than others. I don't want to be giving out homework, so we just redo whatever we're capable of, whatever it let us do. That's fine. We're picking up various marks and tokens and stuff. Meanwhile, my solo self, who's 65, gone through Gorobo Reef and Dromheim and then on to Tarkin Glacier, which is the last zone in the existing content. The Plain Touched Wilds is coming in the upcoming Primalist Call of the Wild type expansion. I don't know if that's more levels or whether that's an alternate start zone, because that's basically adding a whole new class, and they'll need somewhere to start and a way to get up to the levels everyone else is. So I got a feeling that new content's not going to be like level 65 to 70 content, but I could be wrong. But for now, I've won. I've fetched up against the buffers in the station of max level. And now begins the game in earnest, as far as I can tell. I've been sort of pottering around and looking. So obviously, a lot of this game, the game's determined by level progression. That's your core reason to keep moving forward, I suppose, reason to keep playing. Once that's finished, well, there's an alternate advancement thing involving lots of hexagons for minor buffs and bonuses that never ends. That's a sort of planar attunement thing. But it's the gear, isn't it? Your character stops getting more powerful, but the gear doesn't stop going up. So there's more and more sorts of gear that need more and more amounts of more and more exotic and weird currencies that come from doing quite particular end game activities. And I'd seen this all before. I don't know if I want to get on that train again, you know.
Yeah.
It happens to me in almost every MMO I play. I happily solo my way or group my way up through the levels, and then I get to the what's finger quotes the end, the finish, and find out that actually no, that's just the start of a different sort of game, one that I'm really not that fussed with. Your dailies, your constant grinding for raid armor tokens, of which you need 20,000, and you get like 50 per activity or whatever, and that gives you one piece of armor, and you need 8 of those pieces of armor. And then once you've got all that, there's another tier of raid gear above that, but to be able to do the activities that give out those tokens, you need to have a full set of the armor that goes from the previous one, because they have a special manufactured stat like called Radiance, or in Rift's case Hit. Subtle, I like it. And basically, to get involved in any of the raid stuff that people, so when you get to 65, a whole level 65 chat channel opens up, and that turns out to be where everyone was hiding all along. And those people won't shut up. It just keeps going on, and it's mostly LFG requests for raids. Rift doesn't have a looking for raid tool, it only has a looking for group tool. So any of the raid content, which of course is where the biggest bestest tokens for the biggest bestest gear comes from, you have to organise that by spamming chat. And they pretty much want this achievement unlocked, which is essentially have killed the boss of the thing that I'm recruiting people to go and do. In other words, if you've never done it before, no one wants you on their team, which is obviously a self-reinforcing paradox. How the hell do you get the achievement to prove that you can do the thing unless you do the thing once? And no one wants to have that kind of liability on their team. Invariably, they'll be the person who doesn't have the achievement themselves. And then they need you got to have I think 1,000 so basically 1,100 hit on your stat sheet. I've got 706. I don't know where it came from. Different pieces of equipment. Presumably some of this raid gear will have hit on it as well. It's a really stratified, rigid hierarchy that in many ways looks like it will take longer and be more effort intensive than getting to level 65 in the first place. Increasingly in these MMOs, the entire level range is the tutorial, and when you get that done and you feel all proud and self-satisfied, you turn around and you look and you see everyone else has already done that, and they're all grinding away at tokens for obscure raid gear whose only purpose is to help you manage to get better raid gear.
You're doing a fantastic job at selling
MMOs
to me.
No, well, I've decided bollocks to that. I'm doing the crafting. I've got that all the way up to the top, and I'm making bits and selling them. That's fine. The thing is, the levels have stopped, but the story hasn't. The ongoing story missions that are running through Tarkhan Glacier, I've still got quite a lot of that to do, and I'm quite interested in that. It's all about cosmic horror sealed in the ice and unleashed by inexpert research types and the edge of the cosmos and stuff. There's some quite striking imagery on Tarkhan Glacier, some of which you might be able to see on the video. They're big sort of whirling portals into beyond off the edge of the icebergs, sort of icebergs carving off into the cosmos and stuff, and giant lobster horrors from beyond the edge of time and stuff. It's very Lovecraftian. I like it.
Yeah.
So
something you can feel at home at.
Yeah, I feel at home. Yeah, it's keeping me interested. There's also, I've decided I'm just going to go and backfill all the quests I missed anyway. So I'm quite happily, because they've got a very, very flexible de-leveling system, I can just set myself to be level 25 again, go back to some zones that I rushed through in the first place and carry on doing more stuff there. So I can see me spending my time backfilling. I can see myself crafting. I can see myself chipping away at the edges of some of this like top-end world raid content stuff if I accidentally get swept up in it all. But on the whole, it's just backfilling. There's a massive achievements lists in the game as well, because that's the new thing these days, and some of those are quite interesting. Some of those are things that I accidentally found myself having done 2/3 and 3/4 of already, like kill 500 of this type of enemy group, and I've done most of that already. Why not finish it off? But on the whole, yes, reach the end. I can't see any value at all in starting a new alt, starting another character, because of the utter flexibility of their role system. My warrior can do all of the group roles required in a dungeon. The only difference would be I'd be wearing different sort of armour, and I'd have a different set of hotkey icons, but the gameplay would be more or less the same. They've sort of almost entirely broken down the barriers that make a particular archetype, you know, the difference between a rogue and a mage, or a thief, you know, or a warrior or a cleric. They functionally become more and more identical the more souls you get on board. So there's no real benefit at all in starting a new character on the other faction or starting another class. I might as well just keep going with the one I got and de-level and do the low end content on that one instead. I can see it lasting me another month or two. Obviously the static group Fridays, that's carrying on, so it might come to the point where I just retire from solo gaming in there and just potter about for the static group Fridays. Just have it as a group only character.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I quite like the idea of just pottering around in there for a month or two, savouring the win, as it were. Having gotten to 65, I might as well just potter about and lord it over trash mobs for a bit, you know. Just you know, enjoy the destination as well as the journey as much as I can. But I just really, again and again, I sort of earnestly try starting this kind of token acquisition raid gear progression thing in these MMOs when I reach the end, and it never lasts. I just don't have the. You've really got to change gears. You've really got to go for it. You've got to do all the dailies every day. You've got to grind it quite hard because you've basically run the game out of content, and they're desperate to keep you busy while they hurriedly put together another expansion as fast as they can. So you will get to the end and you'll have months and months of just doing the same old dailies over and over and incrementing a little token count.
Sounds ghastly.
It does sound ghastly. So you make other entertainment. Go and do all the achievements. Go and find all the explore stuff. Make sure you've uncovered all the map.
Play other game. Ultimately,
yeah. But we'll see. I can see me pottering about in Rift, but I can see it dwindling and diminishing now that I feel like I've done most of what the game actually is. But the game actually is something else that I'm not that fussed about. Raid gear helps you raid better. It's a cyclic thing, you know. It doesn't you know, get you sexual prowess in other aspects of your non-gaming life. What's the point? You basically get these tokens, you get a piece of gear that lets you then sign up for slightly more difficult tasks that give you a different kind of token and have different gear. And then eventually, it might not be the Plain Touch Wilds, it might be the next one after that, but eventually there'll be another set of content that drops which will add levels 65 to 70. There'll be a whole load of new zones, and all those months you spent grinding out that epic purple raid gear,
utterly worthless.
It goes in the furnace or just gets vendored because often you've bound it because you've equipped it, and you just happily don the first bit of green loot you drop from the yard trash in the new content. So ultimately I think what I'm getting at is that all endeavour is ultimately worthless.
This has been a message from the MMO marketing board.
No, not just MMOs, everything. Everything ends in heat, death and dust in the end, so why bother? Enjoy the moment. And that, for me, means not bothering to grind my arse off looking for tokens and dailies. I'll just go fishing, you know? Seriously, I haven't maxed my fishing yet. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to make food out of the fish and sell it, and I'm going to be like a roving snack van in Rift, just wandering around popular farming locations, hawking fish steaks and fish cakes and things. That's the plan.
It sounds like a ghastly plan.
It's a ghastly plan, but then I have this obsession with MMOs, so what can you do?
Yeah.
Anyway, why don't you talk about a thing that's intrinsically more worthwhile?
Oh, ironically, this is so less worthwhile and far more materialistic.
Yeah.
At least at the end of this,
yes,
I still have something to show for it.
Okay, that's the thing, yeah.
Unfortunately, it's Disney Infinity.
Oh, yeah, at least with Disney Infinity, you have plastic toys at the end of it all,
Yeah.
And someone can't turn the server off and kill your entire, 3 years endeavour, which is something I worry about a lot in MMOs.
Yeah, Disney Infinity 3 just came out. It's, actually, at the time of recording, it's not out in America yet.
I had no idea there was even a 2.
That was last year.
Well, obviously.
Are you familiar with the process of annual franchises?
No, not really. It's an aspect of my pop culture background I tend to miss out on a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, last year's Disney was all about Marvel.
Okay,
Superheroes.
Yep. I saw a lot of superhero figurines.
Yeah. This year, it's all about, funnily enough, I don't know why, I've got this horrible feeling there's a film coming out.
Is it about Star
but
Wars?
It's all about Star Wars. There may be a film coming out. I haven't seen any publicity for it.
It's a very merch-driven game, I have to say, yeah. Have you not got one of them black market RFID chips that can emulate any toy yet?
You've got one.
Have I? What?
It's built into your phone.
Oh, you can do it from the phone.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So why do you need... Oh, no, never mind. Yeah. Supporting the industry, I'm sure.
No, because the toys are actually not... The reason why I got into it in the first place was they released a figure for Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas. Cool. What a bizarre thing. It looks gorgeous. I want that. And that's led to me having now all of them, which is a problem because I'm now on my second shelf.
Well, that's I mean, the collectibles within MMOs and stuff tend to take up 0 physical volume, whereas, this is a different and unique problem to this.
So anyway, the 3 sets that are available at launch for this, there's going to be more later, I think.
Yeah.
It's because for films that haven't come out, there's the Twilight of the thingy, which is basically Clone Wars era.
Okay.
So that has you get these little clear things that go on your base, and they add in a whole new adventure,
Okay.
which is on the disc.
Let's not think about that sort of thing too much.
And so there's one for
There are only 7-year-olds listening. It's all magic. It's fine.
There's one for the well, it just means that you're paying for these 2 figures and this thing, and then it's already on the disc because you've already got it installed. So you've got one for the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
which is Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, basically.
Okay.
And you've got one for classic Star Wars, which is Luke and Leia and everyone from A New Hope.
Okay, cool.
Chewie and
The real
Han.
Star Wars.
The real Star Wars. Yeah. As everyone of my age will always remember it as. And there's also one for Inside Out.
What's that?
What do you mean, what's that?
I don't get
it's
out
the
a
new
lot.
Pixar film that's incredibly good and makes everyone cry.
Okay. Most Pixar films make people cry. That's why I don't watch them. I'm afraid of the feels.
You should watch the Pixar. Pixar films are very good. Have you seen Up?
I've seen Up, and it absolutely devastated me. It was awful.
Yeah,
that opening sequence.
Kids don't get the opening sequence.
No,
luckily. Otherwise,
God,
they'd just give up then.
It's horrific. It's welling up and everything.
Yeah. So there's one for Inside Out, which is basically the numbskulls.
Okay. Oh, what? Wow. Okay. There are no new ideas, are there?
But it's so much better than the numbskulls.
Fair enough.
And there's also ones for a couple of films that are coming out later this year. So basically, I've been playing the Clone Wars one, which is basically sandboxy open areas with lots of missions in them to do stuff. So it starts off playing as a linear go here, do this, kill that, do that.
Okay, yep.
Guys with exclamation marks above their heads.
Sounding familiar.
Full works. And then after you've run through all of those missions, then you get the area opened up, and there's lots of other fetch quests and stuff to do in there.
Okay.
And there's also collectibles in there. You can find these little coins which enable you to bring in characters into it who don't belong in that time period or that game.
A bit like the Lego stuff. You can unlock characters that shouldn't be there. And
so basically, you're playing along quite happily with Ahsoka or Anakin, and you find a coin lying there. You only have to find 1 coin now. You don't have to find 10, which you had to before. And bump, it unlocks Leia for that, so you can bring Leia in.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, you've got somebody who's got a blaster, which helps to be able to shoot Minox and stuff, which are a collectible.
Right.
And it's aimed for kids.
Yep.
So the missions are very, very simple, but each year it gets better and better in just how they present this. There's space combat in it now, which is quite interesting.
Right. So this is turning out to be your go-to Star Wars game for space fighter combat at the moment.
If you want a single-player Star Wars game this year, this is about it, because it's Battlefield, which doesn't have...
It's not a space thing at all, no.
No, it doesn't have a single player. So if you want a single-player Star Wars, this is possibly your only choice.
Wow. Okay.
And also it's got the creator, which enables you to, using a remarkably complex logic system, to actually make your own adventures.
Oh, wow, okay.
And upload them to a server so other people can download them.
And sort of, with scripted encounters, that sort of thing?
It's a basic visual scripting thing, like enter area, go through door, that kind of thing.
Yeah, trigger points and stuff.
Yeah, but you can do quite a lot with it, and people have made some quite impressive things with the previous one. Okay. They haven't done it yet on this one that I've seen, but it's only been out for 24 hours at this point.
Fair enough.
And it's a game where I like what the game represents, because... One, any game which gives you a form of coding and scripting that allows you to make your own games inside it has to be good.
Well, I mean, everyone's bleating away about, there are not going to be any more programmers left, and everyone grows up in a console culture and doesn't learn Spectrum Basic like we used to do, and that means that there's no one left to make no one coming up through the ranks of developers and stuff. But this kind of thing has got to be the entry point at a very early age, hasn't it?
Yeah, imagine.
Okay, you're not actually dealing with source code listings, but the
concepts there. Once you've got the concepts, it's fine.
And then if you're interested in that, you can start looking at proper programming, or Minecraft, Redstone logic, or whatever, and from there, eventually, a new generation of programmers might be available.
Yeah,
we might have computers in the future.
Yeah, which would be nice. I can have patches in my old age where I have to make them myself. So it's interesting. It's great. It looks great. It's got the same cartoony art style, which oddly for this one, coincides pretty close to the art style from Clone Wars and Rebels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does look quite sort of familiar. I've just seen a few bits and pieces of merch lying around, and
so
Clone Wars style.
Yeah. Of course, there's Rebels figures as well, but there's not actually a game set for them. The only problem I have with it is it rarely goes back and fills in previous lines the year after.
Oh, what? So they'll release a whole bunch of figures and then not do anything with them ever again?
Yeah, basically.
Well, because they want you to buy new figures, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be nice if, say,
how would they
maintain compatibility with the play.
How would they earn
sets.
money from going back and adding more stuff to existing things? You'd have to have new transparent mission crystal things for older characters. The expansion pack type model.
One thing they could do is just
or just do it as literally digital only DLC, I suppose.
If they could keep it so that it was all made using the in-game systems and was stable enough to upgrade, and they put the effort in, they would sell the old previous game sets to new players.
Yes, backward compatibility would work well for them, yeah.
But the other thing is you get a release set of figures for a theme such as Avengers, and then they rarely go back and fill in the rest of them.
Is that just because they want, in like 5 years' time, to sell you a whole different set of Avengers toys?
No, it's because they're selling for what's available. Actually, the Avengers is a pretty bad example because there's 3 new Avengers models for it. Well, 3 new Marvel models. One is a black suited Spider-Man, which has got the symbiote suit, but that was an exclusive with the Vita version last year anyway, so that's just being put in. But there's also the Hulkbuster armor and Ultron. So they're adding them from this year's Avengers film to new ones. So I
guess they've got limited resources, limited development. They need to make sure the current hot thing is
you've only
supported.
got so many releases. You've got to support the current new films.
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff that needs supporting.
Yeah, so they probably just don't have the time or the money to go back and add loads of stuff.
You've got to keep supporting the Marvel stuff. You've got to keep supporting the Star Wars stuff. You've definitely got to keep supporting the Pixar stuff.
Yeah.
Then you've got to try and fit in the ones for your previous stuff. Like this release has got a couple of Tron figures. You need your Mickey Mouses and the likes because it's Disney, and if you don't have
no
them,
one cares about Mickey Mouse. God, that was the last real work he ever did. He's so washed up.
He just runs a theme park now.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if they went back. Stuff like they did some Monsters Inc. stuff back in the first one, and it'd be nice to have a couple more characters from that.
Yeah. I guess if there's ever a quiet season where there's not much going on with Marvel, which I admit is a very slim possibility.
There has to be nothing going on with Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars.
So if all of those are not doing much in a given 2-year development cycle, then perhaps we can go back and do some old figures. Yeah.
My
God.
And going back and adding.
Are there other films? I lose track.
No, not anymore.
I don't go to the cinema much ever since the great Disney wars of 2014.
DC makes some movies, but they're always slightly worse and don't do as well.
Well, fair enough.
And Fox make movies as well, but they're all Marvel based.
Who's responsible for that Fantastic Four travesty that happened recently?
That'd be Fox.
Right, fair enough. That's one of the reasons I don't go to the cinema.
No one went to see Fantastic.
Fantastic? Yeah.
And another thing is that they have stuff like racing. But they did a bunch of figures for cars a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah. I could see how that would work well with a kind of Infinity Kart Racer type game. Yeah.
And it would just be nice if they did some more vehicles instead of unlocking.
Is it always... Yeah, it's just the characters, isn't it?
So, in
cars, the characters are the cars, which helps. But, yeah, you don't get the iconic vehicles turning up. Something like Star Wars.
No, you get them. But
is there an X-Wing model?
No, but there's stuff to ride on them.
Okay.
So you can fly in an X... I assume you unlock an X-Wing on the normal one, because you're bound to. But stuff like... in the Clone Wars stuff, you get the Jedi fighters.
Okay.
And you fly around in them. Or when you're walking around, you can get a land speeder and get in that. Yeah,
but mostly it's a very character-centric type thing.
So actually, there's a bit in the Clone Wars one where you're doing... You know the bit in whichever film it was where there's the droid that flies off and they chase... There's the bounty hunter that flies off and they chase in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and they've got that level.
Oh, cool.
And it doesn't matter who you're playing with at that point because it's just
the car, it's a race, a sort of racing game type thing, yeah.
Which is interesting. And the individual missiony bits are better designed this year. They're still not great. They're still a little bit short, a little bit fluffy.
Yeah.
And I'd like them to be more, but...
Of course, you're sort of regarding all this from a sort of connoisseur's gamer's eye.
Yeah, the problem is it is aimed at kids.
I would be fascinated. Anyone listening who's got kids who you've bought this for and who play this, I'd be fascinated to know what they make of it, how well it goes down with the target audience, because I'd have to be the first to say that my co-host here is probably not the target demo. Well, actually thinking about it, probably is the target demographic.
Kids can't afford this.
It's the pester power, isn't it? They're aiming this at parents, I'm sure. But it was interesting just to know what kids make of all this stuff, because we're sort of... looking at it from a different perspective.
The thing is,
do comment if if you've got young kids that you've bought this for, and what they make of it, how they enjoy it. Do they like it? Are they not that fussed?
There should be enough in there for them to enjoy. They're not going to know half of the characters, because I don't know if you have to have a pretty broad film knowledge to understand all of the characters in all of the sets.
But are you meant to buy all of it, or is it the intention being that a kid will have a favourite film and you'll just get the figures, like you'll just get the Incredibles, or you'll just get the cars from Cars or whatever?
Quite possibly, but then again they did the Marvel stuff.
And to be honest, A New Hope. I mean, kids today, are they going to be that fussed about sort of 35-year-old whatever sci-fi film? And the characterisation and people in that. Well, it's on telly a lot, I suppose.
You've got people who've grown up today with their Star Wars films being Phantom Menace, and that's a sad state of affairs, but that is it.
Yeah.
And
so is it an attempt to make something for everyone? Are they, they know that they'll sell different sets to different generations?
I think quite possibly. There's stuff there like the Jack Skellington figures and a lot of the other individual, where they've only done a couple.
Yeah.
They're definitely more sold to people who want that thing.
Yes.
Because they don't have a game set around them.
But it does seem like a bit of a scattergun approach. I mean, I was sort of surprised to see on your shelf the Lone Ranger figures there.
Oh, yeah, the
Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer.
That was part of the first release, and that actually has a game mode.
Okay.
That has one of those game.
But the film itself wasn't a huge critical success.
No, but they didn't know that when they were making it.
I suppose. So what, they literally just make these figures for every film they do and see what sticks?
They're refining what they're doing. It's like the first one was scattergun, lots and lots of everything.
Yeah.
Did a bit of Toy Story.
Yeah. Oh, Toy Story would work, yeah.
Yeah, could do with having a bit more Toy Story.
In fact, Toy Story toys that play in a computer game about toys, that's quite a meta experience.
Yeah, it gets very,
very
meta.
Yeah.
In fact, the entire design of Disney Infinity sort of came out of the Toy Story games that came before it, which had a toy box mode for building stuff.
Yes, and the characters in Toy Story, because of the Pixar sort of angle of it all, more or less are identical to the characters in the Toy Story computer game, which helps. Yeah. Whereas, your little sort of weird Clone Wars style Mark Hamill from sort of the 70s figurine doesn't look a lot like Mark Hamill. It looks enough. That much. I don't know.
And of course, the kid's going to know who Mark Hamill is soon.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
It's that old guy with the beard. And then we'll go, no, that's Alec Guinness, isn't it? And there'll be much confusion. He looks a lot like Alec Guinness did in New Hope nowadays.
The odd thing is, there's absolutely nothing announced for the new film.
I hadn't heard about it, but I just put that down to my own lack of cultural references.
But then again, they haven't announced anything for the new film, and they're doing that on a 24-hour-long, world-spanning reveal of everything.
Yeah.
For which I've seen the catalogue, and there's not a lot of Harrison Ford.
That would be typical if that were the event that brought about the species-spanning singularity, the single common cultural reference our entire planet had, and where we all changed to a higher being. It was the big unveiling of the new Star Wars film. That'd be typical, really, wouldn't it? It would say a lot about us as a species.
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know whether or not that will happen next year or whatever, but there's none of the stuff for the new film yet. But then again, we don't know an awful lot about them because they haven't released it. But so they may have a whole new wave of stuff ready to come out that we don't know about.
So I remember back in the day we were doing this show, and this must have been years and years ago, and we were talking about Skylanders.
Yes.
Are they still a thing? Do they exist? Are they doing well, or is Infinity kicking their backsides?
Oh no, Skylanders are still doing well to a certain extent, not as well as they used to.
And we saw the first Infinity stuff, and I couldn't work out if it was going to be a flash in the pan or just a Me Too exercise from Disney. And now it seems to be doing well. There seems to be a lot of it.
I don't think it's as big as Skylanders.
Okay.
But
so if you have limited pester power, children satisfying capabilities and money, which would you go for?
Skylanders is the better game.
Yeah.
But Skylanders...
It doesn't have the famous characters, I suppose.
Yeah, Skylanders doesn't have as nice models. They are very generic, and they don't have they haven't had as much money spent on character design as
Yes.
the Disney ones have. Because the Disney ones have all had character design by the best in the business doing some of the best films.
Does seem to be a very
in
high
those
quality
genres.
product, yeah.
So, doing something from, say, Toy Story, they've designed all the characters to make the films, so it's just a case of reinterpreting them in that look, which is a lot easier than coming up with another 100 and something Skylanders each year.
Yeah, yeah.
The Skylanders seem to have a lot more models released per year as well, and you don't need them. And the biggest thing, the thing that turns me off Skylanders is each year you have to buy a new portal.
Yeah.
So you have to get the base game each year.
Surely it would be easy enough to design a portal that could be firmware updated by USB each time you need to do it. Surely it's not that they actually need new physical hardware capabilities.
The thing
each
is that Skylanders adds a new gimmick each year.
Yeah, but surely you could backward I don't know if FPGAs, whatever the gizmo inside the portal actually is, it must be capable of being overwritten with new.
Yeah, but
code.
It's the number of receivers in there, how many chips it can support. That kind of
fair
thing.
enough. Well,
but
they've managed to not need to do that for Infinity.
Infinity, the ones from the first one still work on the third.
Yeah. That just seems like a better design to me. Do as much of it as you can in software.
So it's a lot cheaper to upgrade to the new game. All you have to do is you just go out, buy the disc with the game on, and then buy an adventure pack.
Because making the base thing upgrade cost a lot each year is a false economy, because it just means your customers have less to spend on characters and figures.
Yeah. Also, the barrier to entry on each new release is so much higher.
And then you have to unplug. You have to plug the right portal in to play whichever one you want to play. And
Yeah. Of course, it could be worse. It could be the Lego one where the portal costs £100.
You should get that for free. If it's required to buy anything else, make that bit free and sell more of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, I guess I should find some form of conclusion in this. I like the game. It's not a particularly amazing game. What it represents is better, and at the end of the day, I end up with nice little figures of stuff that I like.
Good for the collecting.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, that's it for me. You going to do your spiel?
Yeah. You can find the rest of our previous shows on our YouTube channel and also on howtomurdertime.com. Now with 100% more working database.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
I do like working databases.
It kept falling over in the middle of the night. It was really annoying. If you like this show, then give us a like, please, because that would be very useful. And if you do enjoy it, then please subscribe for more of the same, where we have this, and we also do some playing Space Engineers.
There's some crazy stuff on that last one.
Yeah, that was horrendous. Yeah, and also,
finest hour.
and we also play other various random games, and it's basically just us talking.
Much more of the same.
Yeah, it's more of this, really. So
Excellent.
If you enjoyed this, watch those. You'll probably like
some more
them
of
too.
it. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.